She was 18 when they dragged her to him, and she's been running ever since. The rain tastes like betrayal. Brielle doesn't stop running even though her lungs are screaming, even though the hem of her wedding gown, that cursed white prison they forced her into 5 years ago, is shredded and black with mud. The forest doesn't care that she's barefoot. The stones don't care that her soles are bleeding. The thunder overhead doesn't care that she left everything behind in that suffocating castle. Her shoes, her dignity, the last fragile piece of her heart that still believed she could ever be free. She just needs to reach the border. Just needs to cross into the unclaimed lands before they catch her scent. Before he catches her scent. The trees blur past her in streaks of shadow and silver, branches clawing at her arms like they're trying to hold her back, like even the forest knows she doesn't belong out here alone. But she'd rather bleed out here in the wild than spend one more night in that fortress of marble and gold, waking up to find him standing in her doorway again, silent, watching, waiting for something she can't give him, waiting for her to stop hating him. The bond hums under her ribs like a second heartbeat, that ancient magic she never asked for, pulling her back toward the man she's spent 5 years trying not to love. It burns hotter the farther she runs, a physical ache that makes her stumble against a tree, gasping. Her fingers dig into the bark. Her wolf stirs beneath her skin, restless and angry and confused, because it doesn't understand why they're running from their mate. But her wolf wasn't there the day the elders came. Her wolf didn't see the fear in her mother's eyes when they announced the moon goddess had chosen her, barely 18, just a girl, to be given to Kieran Ashenblade, the Alpha King of the Northern Territories, a man with 40 winters behind him and a reputation that made grown warriors wake up sweating. Her wolf didn't hear her own voice screaming no as they dressed her in white and walked her down that endless stone corridor toward a throne room full of strangers. Her wolf didn't feel the shame of being a sacrifice wrapped in silk. Lightning splits the sky open, and for one blinding second, Brielle sees everything. The cliff edge 20 feet ahead, the valley dropping into darkness below, the rain-soaked world spinning around her like it's trying to shake her loose. She skids to a stop, her body swaying dangerously close to the edge. Her breath comes in ragged sobs. There's nowhere left to run. Behind her, the sound of footsteps. Not hurried. Not panicked. Steady. Inevitable. She spins around, and he's there. Emerging from the shadows like he was born from them, moving through the storm like it's nothing, like the rain bends around him out of respect. Kieran, the Alpha King. Her husband in name, her captor in truth, the man who has haunted every corner of her world for 5 years without ever once raising his voice, without ever once forcing her into anything except his presence. He stops 10 feet away. His dark hair is plastered to his face, rainwater dripping from his jaw, and those storm-gray eyes, gods, those eyes, are locked on her with an intensity that makes her knees weak. He's not in his ceremonial armor tonight. Just a simple black tunic and pants, soaked through, clinging to the broad lines of his shoulders and chest. He looks almost human like this. Almost. But Brielle knows better. She's seen what he becomes when the pack is threatened. She's heard the stories of how he tore through an entire rebel faction with his bare hands to protect the eastern villages. She knows the kind of power that lives beneath his skin, the kind of control it takes to keep that power leashed. And she knows, God's help her, she knows that he's never once used that power against her. Not when she screamed at him on their wedding night. Not when she shattered every dish in the dining hall. Not when she told him she wished the moon goddess had chosen someone else, anyone else, because she would rather die alone than be loved by a man she didn't choose. He just looked at her with those unbearably sad eyes and said, "Then I'll wait." And he had. For 5 goddamned years, he'd waited. Never touched her. Never rushed her. Never demanded anything except that she stay safe, stay close, Stay within the castle walls where he could protect her from the threats she didn't even know existed. But she'd mistaken his patience for indifference, his silence for cruelty, his distance for proof that he didn't really want her, that she was just a political move, a prophecy fulfilled, a checkmark on some ancient list of royal duties. She'd been so sure he didn't care. Until tonight. Until she'd overheard him talking to his second-in-command in the war room, his voice raw in a way she'd never heard before, saying, if she wants to leave, let her go. I won't cage someone I love. I won't become the monster she thinks I am. The word love had hit her like a blade between the ribs. And she'd run. Not because she didn't believe him, but because she did. Because if he loved her, actually loved her, then everything she'd built to protect herself over the last 5 years. The anger, the resentment, the carefully maintained wall of ice between them would come crashing down. And she'd have to face the truth she's been running from since the moment she saw him standing at the end of that altar, looking at her like she was the answer to a question he'd been asking his whole life. She'd have to face that maybe she felt it too. Brielle. His voice cuts through the storm, low and rough and careful, like he's afraid she'll bolt over the cliff edge if he speaks too loud. Come away from the ledge. She shakes her head, rain streaming down her face, mixing with tears she didn't realize she was crying. You should have let me go. I did. He takes one step closer, hands loose at his sides, palms open. Non-threatening. You're the one who stopped running. Her laugh comes out broken. I stopped because there's nowhere left to run. No. Another step. His eyes never leave hers. You stopped because you know the truth now. Her heart hammers against her ribs. What truth? That I've never been your cage, Brielle. I've been the only thing standing between you and the people who want to use what you are. The words land like stones in her chest. What you are. She's spent 5 years trying not to think about it. The power that flickers under her skin when she's angry, the silver flame that ignited in her palms the night of the wedding and sent 3 elders stumbling backward in shock. The reason the moon goddess chose her in the first place. The reason she's terrified of herself. I don't know what I am, she whispers. Kieran's expression softens, and it's that softness, that unbearable, undeserved gentleness, that finally breaks her. Then let me show you, he says quietly. Let me tell you what I've been protecting you from. Why they wanted you locked away. Why your own pack elders were so eager to hand you over to me. She stares at him, rain dripping from her lashes, her body trembling from cold and exhaustion, and too many years of holding everything in. Why? He holds her gaze. Because you're not just an alpha's mate, Brielle. You're the one the prophecy speaks of. The girl born with the flame of the first wolves running through her veins. And there are people, powerful people, who would rather see you dead than see you claim what's yours. The world tilts. The bond flares hot and bright between them, and for the first time since they bonded, she doesn't fight it. She lets it pull, lets it burn, lets it show her the truth she's been too angry and too wounded to see. That every time he stood in her doorway, he was standing guard. That every time he kept his distance, he was giving her space to heal. That every time he looked at her with those storm-gray eyes, he was seeing her, all of her, even the parts she tried to hide. I didn't ask for this, she says, her voice breaking. I know. He's close enough now that she can feel the heat radiating off him despite the rain. But you have it anyway. And I've spent 5 years waiting for you to stop seeing me as your enemy and start seeing me as the man who would burn the world down before I let anyone hurt you. She looks up at him. This king, this alpha, this man she's hated and feared and maybe, God's help her, loved without ever admitting it, and something inside her finally cracks open. I don't know how to do this, she whispers. Kieran lifts one hand slowly, giving her every chance to pull away. When she doesn't, his fingers brush her cheek, achingly gentle. Then let me teach you. And in the space between one heartbeat and the next, Brielle realizes the truth she's been running from all along. She was never running from him. She was running from herself. From the power she doesn't understand. From the destiny she never wanted. From the terrifying possibility that the moon goddess knew exactly what she was doing when she bound an angry, frightened 18-year-old girl to a king who had already lost everything once before and chose to love her anyway. The thunder rolls overhead, the rain pours down, and Brielle stands at the edge of the cliff with her hand in his, finally ready to stop running. Finally ready to fall. If you're already hooked and you need to know what happens next, hit that subscribe button for Cindy's Wolfheart stories, because this is only the beginning. He doesn't pull her close like she expects. Instead, Kieran steps back, releasing her hand, and the loss of his warmth hits her like a physical blow. The bond writhes in her chest, angry at the distance, and Brielle hates how much she suddenly wants him to touch her again. How much 5 years of walls are crumbling in the space of minutes. "We need to move," he says, his voice shifting into something sharper, more alert. His head tilts slightly, eyes scanning the tree line behind them. "They're coming." Her blood goes cold. "Who?" "The ones who've been waiting for you to leave the castle." His jaw tightens. "The ones who knew you'd eventually run." And just like that, the illusion of her freedom shatters. She hadn't escaped anything. She'd walked right into a trap. Before she can process it, Kieran moves fast, fluid, positioning himself between her and the forest. 3 wolves emerge from the shadows, their eyes glowing amber in the darkness, their growls low and threatening. But they're not from his pack. She can tell by the way they move, the way they watch her like she's prey. "The Shadowborn Covenant," Kieran says quietly, and there's something dark and dangerous threading through his tone. They've been circling the borders for months, waiting for an opportunity. An opportunity for what? Her voice shakes. "To take you." He doesn't look at her, his attention fixed on the wolves spreading out, flanking them. "To use your bloodline for their own purposes. To drain the flame from your veins and burn away the packs that oppose them." The silver flame flickers under her skin in response, like it recognizes the threat. She feels it rising, hot and wild and terrifying, and she doesn't know how to control it. She's spent 5 years suppressing it, pretending it doesn't exist. "I can't fight," she whispers. "You don't have to." Kieran's voice drops to something almost gentle despite the danger. "That's what I'm here for." One of the wolves lunges. What happens next is brutal and beautiful and impossible to look away from. Kieran shifts, not fully, but partially, his hands elongating into claws, his body moving with a speed and grace that shouldn't be possible for someone his size. He meets the first wolf midair, redirecting its momentum and sending it crashing into the trees. The second wolf tries to circle around him, going for Brielle, but Kieran is already there, putting himself between them again, his claws catching the wolf across the shoulder. The third wolf hesitates. Smart. Kieran doesn't press the attack. He stands there, breathing steady, blood dripping from his claws, and waits. The message is clear: leave or die. The wolves retreat, melting back into the shadows, but their eyes linger on Brielle. Hungry. Calculating. When they're gone, Kieran shifts back fully, his body returning to human form. He doesn't even look winded. He turns to her, and the concern in his eyes is so raw, so real, that it steals her breath. "Are you hurt?" She shakes her head, mute, still trying to process what just happened. He'd fought 3 wolves without fully shifting, without losing control, and he'd done it while making sure she stayed safe. While making sure she didn't have to see the worst of what he could become. "We can't stay here," he says. "There will be more." "Where do we go?" Her voice sounds small, lost. Kieran looks at her for a long moment, something unreadable flickering across his face. Then he holds out his hand again. "Somewhere I should have taken you 5 years ago. Somewhere you can learn the truth about what you are and why I've been so desperate to keep you alive. She stares at his hand, at the blood still drying on his knuckles from defending her, at the patience in his eyes despite everything. Despite her running. Despite her hating him. Despite 5 years of her pushing him away at every turn. He's still here. He's always been here. And maybe that means something. Brielle reaches out, her fingers trembling, and places her hand in his. His grip is warm, steady, solid. Real. I don't trust easily, she says. I know. His thumb brushes across her knuckles, achingly gentle. But I've waited 5 years, Brielle. I can wait as long as you need. Stop saying things like that. Why? Because it makes it harder to hate you. Something that might be a smile ghosts across his lips, sad, hopeful, devastating. Good. He pulls her away from the cliff edge, away from the place where she almost threw herself into the abyss just to escape him, and leads her deeper into the forest. She follows, the bond humming between them like a living thing, and tries not to think about how right his hand feels in hers. How safe she feels, despite the danger. How much she's terrified that he's been telling the truth all along, that he's not her captor, but her protector. Not her enemy, but the one person who's been fighting for her since the moment the moon goddess bound their souls. And if that's true, if he's really loved her all this time while she's spent 5 years hating him, then she doesn't know how she'll ever forgive herself. The rain continues to fall, washing away the blood, the mud, the last remnants of her white wedding gown. And Brielle walks beside the Alpha King, finally ready to hear the truth she's been running from. Finally ready to understand why the moon goddess chose them. And why some loves are worth waiting for even when the person you're waiting for can't see you standing right in front of them, offering them the world. They walk for hours through the forest, Kieran leading her along paths she doesn't recognize, his hand never leaving hers. The storm has softened to a gentle rain, the world hushed and gray around them. Brielle's body aches with exhaustion, her feet screaming with every step, but she doesn't complain. Doesn't ask to stop. Because if she stops moving, she'll have to think. And thinking means facing the memories she's kept locked away. But the memories come anyway, uninvited, flooding through her mind like water through a broken dam. She remembers being 17, before any of this started. Remembers living in the small cottage on the edge of her pack's territory with her mother, a healer, and her father, a warrior who never made it past the rank of scout. They were nobody important. Nobody special. Just a quiet family trying to survive in a world that didn't care about quiet families. She remembers the day everything changed. The day she shifted for the first time. Most wolves shift around puberty, 12, 13, maybe 14. Brielle didn't shift until she was 17, and when it finally happened, it wasn't normal. Wasn't natural. The wolf that emerged from her skin was larger than it should have been, silver white like moonlight, with eyes that glowed not amber but pure, burning silver. And when she'd howled, gods, when she'd howled, the sound had shattered every window in a 3-mile radius. The elders had come the next day. They'd examined her, whispered among themselves, checked ancient texts and prophecies that Brielle didn't understand. Her parents had stood in the corner of the room, her mother clutching her father's arm, both of them pale and terrified. Finally, the head elder had looked at her and said, "You carry the blood of the first wolves. The original pack, blessed by the moon goddess herself before the pack split and scattered across the world. Your power is sacred and dangerous." What does that mean? Brielle had asked, her voice shaking. The elder's expression had been unreadable. It means you don't belong to your pack anymore. You belong to destiny. Within a week, they'd sent word to the Alpha King. Within a month, Kieran had arrived, silent and imposing in his black armor, and the elders had presented her like a gift. Like a sacrifice. They'd told her it was an honor to be chosen as the Alpha King's mate, that the moon goddess herself had revealed it in a vision, that this was her purpose. But all Brielle had heard was, "You have no choice." She remembers her mother crying as they dressed her in the white gown. Remembers her father refusing to meet her eyes. Remembers walking down that stone corridor toward the throne room, her heart hammering, her wolf snarling inside her, both of them screaming that this was wrong, wrong, wrong. And then she'd seen him. Kieran, standing at the end of the hall, backlit by the afternoon sun streaming through the stained glass windows. Tall, broad-shouldered, with storm-gray eyes that had locked onto hers with an intensity that made her knees weak. He was 40 years old, more than twice her age, with silver threading through his dark hair and scars marking his hands, his neck, his jaw. A warrior. A king. A man who'd lived a lifetime before she'd even been born. He'd looked at her like she was the answer to every prayer he'd ever whispered. And she'd looked at him like he was the enemy. The ceremony had been brief. The bond had snapped into place the moment he'd taken her hand, that ancient magic burning through both of them, linking their souls in a way that couldn't be undone. She'd felt it, the overwhelming rush of his emotions hitting her all at once. His loneliness. His hope. His desperate, aching need for something real after decades of duty and sacrifice. But she'd also felt his fear. Fear that she'd hate him. Fear that he'd become the monster she already thought he was. Fear that the moon goddess had given him a gift he'd never be worthy of. That fear had almost made her feel sorry for him. Almost. Because sympathy didn't change the fact that she was 18 years old, barely an adult, being bound to a man she didn't know and didn't love. It didn't change the fact that her life had been decided for her. That her power, this curse running through her veins, had marked her as something to be used, controlled, managed. So she'd built her walls. Brick by brick, day by day, she'd constructed a fortress of ice around her heart. She'd refused to speak to him except when absolutely necessary. Refused to share meals with him. Refused to attend pack gatherings or ceremonies at his side. She'd lived in the castle like a ghost, drifting through corridors and gardens, always alone. And Kieran had let her. He'd given her her own wing of the castle. Her own space. He'd never once tried to force intimacy. Never once demanded she fulfill any wifely duties. Never once made her feel like she owed him anything except her presence. But his presence had haunted her anyway. She'd see him standing in her doorway some nights, silent, just watching her with those sad eyes. She'd feel the bond pulling at her, trying to draw her to him, whispering that he was hurting too. That they were both trapped in this, both suffering. But she'd ignored it. Told herself he didn't really care. That this was just about prophecy and politics and power. That a man like him, a king, a warrior, an alpha who commanded thousands, couldn't possibly love a girl like her. Except now she knows the truth. He does love her. He's loved her from the beginning. And she's spent 5 years punishing him for a choice neither of them made. Brielle. Kieran's voice pulls her from the memories. They've stopped walking, and she realizes they're standing in front of a small cabin, hidden deep in the forest, surrounded by protective runes carved into the trees. We're here. She looks up at him, at the exhaustion lining his face, at the way he's still holding her hand like he's afraid she'll disappear if he lets go. Where is here? She asks quietly. Somewhere safe. He meets her gaze. Somewhere I can tell you everything. About the prophecy. About your power. About why your pack was so afraid of what you might become. She takes a shaky breath. And if I don't want to know? Then we'll leave, and I'll keep protecting you from the truth for as long as you need me to. His thumb brushes across her knuckles again, that gesture she's starting to recognize as his way of grounding himself. But I think you're ready now. I think you're finally ready to stop running from yourself. Brielle looks at the cabin, at the runes glowing softly in the darkness, at the promise of answers she's been too afraid to seek. And she realizes he's right. She's tired of running. Tired of being afraid. Tired of hating a man who's done nothing but love her quietly, patiently, desperately for 5 years. Okay, she whispers. Tell me everything. The inside of the cabin is warm, lit by a fire that seems to burn without needing wood, its flames dancing with an ethereal silver blue light. Brielle sinks into a chair by the hearth, her body finally giving in to the exhaustion, while Kieran moves around the space with quiet efficiency, finding blankets, heating water, tending to the cuts on her feet that she'd forgotten about in the chaos. When he kneels in front of her with bandages and salve, she almost protests. But the words die in her throat when she sees the careful concentration on his face, the gentleness in his hands as he cleans the wounds and wraps them. You don't have to do this, she says softly. I know. He doesn't look up. But I want to. Something twists in her chest. 5 years, and he's never stopped trying. Never stopped showing her, in small, quiet ways, that she matters to him. When he's finished, he sits back on his heels and finally meets her eyes. The prophecy, he begins, his voice low and steady, dates back to the time of the first wolves. Before the pack split. Before territories and borders and politics. When all wolves lived as one under the moon goddess's direct guidance. Brielle pulls the blanket tighter around herself, listening. The first wolves were different from what we are now, Kieran continues. Stronger. More connected to the ancient magic. They could do things modern wolves can't even imagine, call storms, heal with a touch, speak directly to the goddess herself. But that power came with a price. The more they used it, the more unstable they became. Eventually, the pack tore itself apart from the inside. He stands, moving to the window, his silhouette backlit by the silver flames. The goddess intervened. She split the original pack into dozens of smaller packs, diluting the bloodline so no single wolf would carry too much power. So no one could become dangerous enough to destroy everything again. But Brielle prompts, because she can hear the unspoken word hanging in the air. But the goddess also made a promise. Kieran turns to face her. That one day, when the packs had learned balance, when they'd learned to coexist without destroying each other, she would send someone carrying the original bloodline. Someone who could reunite what was scattered. Someone with the flame of the first wolves burning in their veins. The silver fire flickers under Brielle's skin in response, and she knows, he's talking about her. The prophecy says this person would be born under a blood moon, during the winter solstice, to a family of no particular rank or power, Kieran says quietly, and that they would carry a mark, a symbol of the goddess's favor. Brielle's hand unconsciously moves to her left shoulder blade, where a crescent moon birthmark has sat her entire life. She'd always thought it was just a birthmark. Nothing special. Kieran sees the gesture, and his expression softens. You were born during the winter solstice, Brielle. 18 years ago, under a blood moon. And when the elders examined you after your first shift, they found the mark. Why didn't anyone tell me? Her voice cracks. Because your parents were trying to protect you. He moves closer, crouching beside her chair. They knew what it meant. Knew that if word got out, you'd become a target. Every pack with an agenda would try to claim you, use you, control you. So they kept it quiet, hoped maybe the prophecy was wrong, maybe you'd just be a normal wolf with a normal life. But I'm not normal. No. His eyes hold hers. You're extraordinary. And terrifying to anyone who wants to maintain the current balance of power. Brielle processes this, her mind racing. The Shadowborn Covenant, they want to use my power to destroy the other packs. Yes. And the elders who gave me to you, they wanted me controlled. Yes. And you? She looks at him, searching his face. What do you want? Kieran is quiet for a long moment. Then, I want you to be free, Brielle. Free to choose. Free to become whoever you're meant to be, prophecy or not. I want you to know that you're not a weapon to be wielded or a prize to be won. You're a person. And you deserve to decide your own fate. Even if that means leaving you? Pain flashes across his face, but he doesn't look away. Even then. The bond pulses between them, warm and insistent, and Brielle realizes something that makes her breath catch. He means it. He would let her go, prophecy be damned, even if it destroyed him. Because he loves her more than he loves the destiny the moon goddess laid out for them. The cabin, she says, changing the subject before her emotions overwhelm her. What is this place? A sacred site. Kieran glances around the room. One of the original meeting places of the first wolves. The magic here is old, strong. It'll amplify your connection to your power, help you understand it, control it. As if in response, the silver flames in the hearth flare brighter, and Brielle feels something shift inside her. The power that's been coiled tight under her skin for 5 years begins to unfurl, tentative, curious, testing its boundaries. I'm scared, she whispers. I know. Kieran reaches out slowly, giving her every chance to pull away, and takes her hand. But you're not alone. Not anymore. Whatever you become, whatever this power makes you, I'm here. I've always been here. And finally, Brielle lets herself believe him. She closes her eyes and reaches for the flame inside her, the part of herself she's been suppressing and fearing and denying. It responds immediately, eager, flooding through her veins like liquid starlight. Her hands begin to glow, silver light emanating from her palms, and when she opens her eyes, the entire cabin is bathed in ethereal radiance. Kieran watches her with something like reverence. Beautiful, he breathes. And Brielle, for the first time in 5 years, doesn't feel like a curse or a sacrifice or a frightened girl who didn't choose her fate. She feels powerful. She feels seen. She feels like maybe, just maybe, the moon goddess knew exactly what she was doing after all. The peace shatters at dawn. Brielle wakes to Kieran's hand on her shoulder, his touch urgent but gentle. She'd fallen asleep by the fire after hours of practicing with her power, exhausting herself until the silver flames finally dimmed. He'd stayed awake, watching over her, and the realization makes something warm bloom in her chest. They've found us, he says quietly. She's on her feet instantly, the residual ache in her body forgotten. Through the cabin window, she can see them. At least a dozen wolves surrounding the clearing, their eyes glowing in the pre-dawn darkness. But these aren't Shadowborn scouts. These wolves wear the ceremonial markings of pack elders, and at their head stands someone Brielle recognizes with a sinking feeling in her stomach. Elder Thorn. The man who delivered her to Kieran 5 years ago. They're from my old pack, she whispers. I know. Kieran's jaw is tight. And they're not alone. More figures emerge from the tree line. Wolves from the Northern Territories, Kieran's own pack, led by his second-in-command, Cashin. The two groups face each other across the clearing, tension crackling in the air like lightning about to strike. Cashin steps forward, his expression conflicted. Alpha King, he calls out. The council demands your return. They say you've been compromised. Kieran's hand finds Brielle's, his fingers lacing through hers. Compromised how? By her. Elder Thorn's voice cuts through the morning air, cold and accusatory. The girl has awakened her power. The prophesied flame burns in her veins. She's a threat to the natural order, to the balance we've maintained for centuries. The council has voted, she must be contained or eliminated. The words hit Brielle like a physical blow. After everything, after finally beginning to understand what she is, they want to destroy her for it. The council doesn't speak for me, Kieran says, his voice deadly calm. And they don't decide her fate. You're allowing your bond to cloud your judgment, Cashin argues, and there's genuine concern in his tone. We've served together for decades, Kieran. I've never seen you like this. She's making you weak. She's making me remember what I'm fighting for. Kieran's grip on Brielle's hand tightens. All these years, I've protected the packs, maintained peace, played politics. And for what? So we could continue living in fear of our own power? So we could keep suppressing anyone who might challenge the status quo. Elder Thorne's expression hardens. The first wolves nearly destroyed everything. We cannot allow that power to exist unchecked again. Then check it, Kieran snaps. Train her. Guide her. Help her learn control. But don't you dare ask me to cage her or kill her because you're afraid of what she might become. The council has made its decision. Thorne raises his hand, and the wolves around him tense, ready to attack. Return to the capital, Alpha King. Bring the girl. Let the elders determine her fate through proper channels. No. The single word rings out with absolute authority, and Brielle feels the power rolling off Kieran in waves. This is what he becomes when pushed, not cruel, not violent, but immovable. A king who's finally drawing a line. Then you leave us no choice, Thorne says coldly. Everything happens at once. The elder wolves surge forward. Cashin shouts orders to stand down, but some of Kieran's own pack are already moving, torn between loyalty to their king and loyalty to the council. Kieran shifts partially, putting himself between Brielle and the attackers, his claws extending. But before the first wolf reaches them, Brielle's power explodes outward. She doesn't mean to do it, doesn't consciously control it. The silver flame erupts from her skin in a wave of pure energy, knocking back everyone within 20 feet. The wolves yelp, stumbling, and the ground beneath their feet cracks, ancient runes carved into the earth glowing bright in response to her power. The clearing falls silent. Everyone stares at her, this small woman surrounded by silver fire, her eyes glowing with the light of the first wolves, power radiating from her in waves that make the air itself shimmer. I am not a threat, Brielle says, and her voice carries in a way it never has before. Strong. Clear. Undeniable. I am not a weapon. I am not yours to contain or eliminate. I am a person, and I will not be sacrificed for your fear. Elder Thorne recovers first, his expression twisting with something like disgust. You see, he shouts to the assembled wolves. This is exactly what we feared. She cannot control it. She will destroy us all. She just saved your life, Kieran interrupts, his voice cutting. That burst of power could have incinerated everyone here. Instead, she held back, showed restraint, proved she has more control than any of you gave her credit for. But the damage is done. Brielle can see it in their faces, the fear, the uncertainty, the way they look at her like she's a monster waiting to happen. Even some of Kieran's own wolves are backing away, whispering among themselves. Cashin steps forward, his expression pained. Kieran, please. Come back with us. We can figure this out. The council can be reasoned with. The council wants her dead or bound, Kieran says flatly. There's nothing to reason with. Then what are you going to do? Cashin's voice drops. Fight your own pack? Abandon everything you've built? Become a rogue king for a girl you've known 5 years? The question hangs in the air and Brielle's heart clenches. Because Cashin's right. If Kieran chooses her, truly chooses her, he'll lose everything. His position. His pack. His legacy. Everything he's spent his life building will crumble. She can't let him do that. Go with them, she says quietly, releasing his hand. Kieran's head snaps toward her. What? You heard Cashin. If you stay with me, you lose everything. She forces herself to meet his eyes, even though it hurts. I won't be the reason you destroy your life. Brielle. I can survive on my own. The lie tastes bitter. I don't need you to protect me anymore. Something breaks in his expression. You're doing it again. Doing what? Pushing me away. Running before anyone can get close enough to hurt you. He takes a step toward her, ignoring everyone watching. 5 years, Brielle. 5 years I've waited, And the moment things get hard, you're ready to walk away. This isn't about me running. Yes, it is. His voice is raw now, all pretense of control stripped away. You're terrified. Not of them, not of your power, of me. Of what it means if I choose you over everything else. Because if I do that, you can't keep telling yourself I don't really love you. You can't keep hiding behind your walls. The truth of his words hits her like a blade. So here's your choice, Kieran says, his storm gray eyes locked on hers. You can run again. Leave me here, go off on your own, keep convincing yourself you're better off alone. Or you can trust me. Trust that I know exactly what I'm giving up, and I'm choosing you anyway. Brielle's heart hammers in her chest. Around them, the wolves wait, the dawn breaking over the trees, painting everything in shades of gold and crimson. She looks at Kieran, this king, this alpha, this man who's loved her with a patience she doesn't deserve, and realizes she's standing at another cliff edge. But this time, she's not running. I'm scared, she whispers. So am I. He offers his hand. But I'd rather be scared with you than safe without you. And Brielle, for the first time in her life, makes a choice that's entirely her own. She takes his hand. The wolves erupt in chaos, some shouting support, others calling for them to be stopped, but Kieran pulls her close, and she feels the bond flare bright between them, stronger than ever before. Then we leave, he says against her hair. Together. We find somewhere safe, and I teach you to control your power. And when you're ready. When we're both ready, we come back and change everything. Elder Thorne's voice rises above the din. You'll be hunted. Both of you. Rogues without pack or protection. We'll survive, Kieran says simply. We always do. And as they turn to leave, Brielle feels the silver flame pulse inside her, steady and strong. They're not running anymore. They're choosing each other. And that makes all the difference. Spending weeks in the wilderness teaches Brielle more about Kieran than 5 years in a castle ever did. She learns that he's an early riser, always awake before dawn to check their perimeter. That he hums quietly when he cooks, old songs from his childhood that he probably doesn't realize he's singing. That he has nightmares sometimes, waking with a gasp and her name on his lips, reaching for her in the dark to make sure she's still there. She learns that beneath the Alpha King is just a man. Scarred, tired, and desperately lonely. And she learns that she's been blind. They've made camp in a hidden valley, far from packed territories, where Kieran can train her to control her power without worrying about being tracked. Every day, she practices calling the silver flame, learning to shape it, direct it, pull it back before it consumes everything. And every day, Kieran is there, patient, encouraging, never once flinching when the fire gets too close. Tonight, they sit by their campfire, the stars brilliant overhead, and for the first time in weeks, Brielle feels almost peaceful. Tell me about your first mate, she says quietly. Kieran stiffens beside her. She's never asked before, never wanted to know about the woman who came before her. But now she needs to understand him. Her name was Lyanna, he says finally, his voice distant. We met when I was 25, both of us young and stupid and convinced we were invincible. She was fierce, brilliant, kind. Everything I didn't know I needed. What happened? The same thing that happens to everyone who stands too close to me. His jaw tightens. We were ambushed during a border patrol. Rival pack, trying to destabilize the territories. They knew killing her would break me, make me weak. They were right. Brielle's chest aches. I'm sorry. I spent 15 years after that convinced I'd never feel anything again, Kieran continues. Threw myself into ruling, into building alliances, into making sure no one else had to lose someone the way I did. And then the moon goddess came to me in a vision, told me she had someone for me. That I'd get a second chance at love, if I was patient enough to wait for it. He looks at her, and the vulnerability in his eyes steals her breath. I didn't believe her at first, he admits. thought maybe I'd gone mad with grief. But then your elders sent word about a girl born under a blood moon, carrying the mark of the first wolves. And when I arrived and saw you gods, Brielle, barely 18, furious and terrified and so goddamned beautiful it hurt to look at you. I knew you were what the goddess promised. But I hated you. I know. He smiles sadly. And I understood why. You were so young, and I was asking you to give up everything. Your freedom, your choices, your chance at a normal life. I couldn't blame you for resenting me. So you waited, she whispers. So I waited. He reaches out, tucking a strand of hair behind her ear, his touch achingly gentle. Because you were worth waiting for. Because I'd rather have you hate me and be safe than force you into something you weren't ready for. Because loving someone means giving them space to find their own way, even if that way leads them away from you. Brielle's throat tightens. I don't hate you. I know that now. I think she takes a shaky breath. I think I've been falling in love with you this whole time and didn't want to admit it. Because admitting it meant accepting that maybe the moon goddess was right. That maybe this bond, this destiny I never asked for, was actually a gift. Kieran's expression transforms, hope and longing and something deeper flickering across his face. Brielle. I'm not there yet, she interrupts gently. I'm not ready to say I love you. But I want to try. I want to stop pushing you away and see what we could be if I actually let you in. That's enough, he says, his voice rough with emotion. That's more than enough. They sit in silence for a long moment, the fire crackling between them, the bond humming warm and steady. Then Kieran stands, offering his hand. Dance with me. She blinks. What? Dance with me. He pulls her to her feet, one hand at her waist, the other clasping hers. We never had a wedding dance. Never had any of the normal things couples have. So let me have this. Just this. There's no music except the sound of the wind through the trees, but Brielle lets him lead her in a slow circle around the fire. He moves with surprising grace for someone so large, his body warm against hers, his hand steady at her back. I see you, he murmurs, echoing the words he'd said the night she ran. All of you. The anger, the fear, the power you're learning to claim. The girl who's brave enough to stand at a cliff edge and jump. And I'm in awe of you, Brielle. Every single day. She looks up at him, at the silver streaking through his dark hair, at the scars marking his skin, at the storm-gray eyes that have watched her with such patience and love for 5 years. And she finally sees him. Not as the Alpha King, not as her captor, not as the destiny she didn't choose. Just as Kieran. A man who's loved her since the beginning. Who's given her everything and asked for nothing in return. Who's walked away from his entire life because choosing her was more important than keeping his crown. Thank you, she whispers. For what? For waiting. For seeing me. For loving me even when I made it impossible. He leans down, his forehead resting against hers, and they sway together in the firelight. I'd wait 1,000 years for you, Brielle. And I'd do it all over again. And standing there, dancing with no music under a sky full of stars, Brielle finally lets herself hope. Hope that maybe they can have this. Hope that maybe love is worth the fear. Hope that maybe, just maybe, she's finally found where she belongs. They should have known peace never lasts. Brielle wakes to the sound of wolves howling in the distance, too many, too close. Kieran is already moving, pulling on his clothes, his expression grim. We need to leave. Now. But before they can gather their supplies, the wolves emerge from the forest. 20 of them at least, forming a perfect circle around the camp. And at their head stands someone Brielle never expected to see again. Cassian. Kieran's second in command, his oldest friend, the man who'd served at his side for decades. He looks older than Brielle remembers, worn and tired, and there's something that might be regret in his eyes. Cassian. Kieran's voice is flat, controlled. Stand down. I can't. Cashin steps forward, hands raised in a gesture of peace that rings hollow. The council sent me to bring you both back. They've issued an ultimatum: return within 3 days, or be declared rogues and enemies of all packs. Let them declare us enemies, Kirin says coldly. We're not going back. You have to. Cashin's voice cracks. Kirin, please. They're planning to unite all the packs against you. Every alpha, every elder, every warrior. You can't fight them all. Watch me. And what about her? Cashin's gaze shifts to Brielle. What happens when they come for her? When they decide the only way to stop the prophesied flame is to extinguish it permanently. You think you can protect her against 1,000 wolves? The words land like stones, and Brielle feels ice spreading through her chest. She'd known they were being hunted, but she hadn't realized the scale. Hadn't understood that every pack in the territories would see her as a threat. We'll run, Kirin says. We'll find somewhere they can't follow. There is nowhere. Cashin takes another step closer. The council has already sent word to every neighboring territory. The mountain packs, the coastal clans, even the rogues have been warned. They're offering a bounty, Kirin. Dead or alive. Brielle's stomach turns. How much? Cashin hesitates, then, enough to tempt anyone. The implications settle over her like a shroud. There's no safe place. No haven. They're being hunted by everyone, everywhere, with a price on their heads that ensures someone will eventually collect. Then what do you suggest? Kirin's voice is dangerously quiet. Come back, Cashin pleads. Face the council. Let them see she's not a threat, that she can control her power. Maybe they'll show mercy. Mercy. Kirin laughs, bitter and harsh. The same council that voted to have her contained or eliminated. The same elders who see her as a weapon to be feared rather than a person to be protected? That council. It's the only option. No. Brielle's voice cuts through the tension. Both men turn to look at her. There's another option. Kirin's eyes narrow. Brielle, whatever you're thinking. I go back alone. She steps forward, her heart hammering. I face the council, prove I'm not a threat. They don't want you, Kirin. They want me. So, let me be the one to end this. Absolutely not. The words come out like a growl. It's the only way to keep you safe. I don't want to be safe. Kirin's control finally snaps. I want you alive, Brielle. I want you free. And I sure as hell am not letting you sacrifice yourself to a council of cowards who'd rather kill what they don't understand than learn to live with it. This is exactly what they predicted, Cashin says quietly, and there's something in his tone that makes Brielle's blood run cold. The prophecy doesn't just speak of a girl with the flame of the first wolves. It speaks of how she'll fall, brought down not by enemies, but by the one who loves her most. By the alpha who'll choose her over his people, fracturing the packs and plunging the territories into chaos. The words hang in the air like poison. Kirin goes very still. What are you saying? I'm saying the council believes you've already fulfilled the dark part of the prophecy. Cashin's expression is tortured. By choosing her, by abandoning your position, you've destabilized the northern territories. 3 packs have already broken their alliances. 5 more are threatening to follow. The balance we've maintained for generations is crumbling because the Alpha King chose love over duty. That's not her fault. I know. Cashin's voice breaks. But they don't care whose fault it is. They just want it stopped. And the only way to stop it is to eliminate the source. Brielle feels the world tilting beneath her feet. Everything they've been running from, everything they've been fighting, it's all been leading to this. To the revelation that loving each other is somehow destroying everything. The council sent you here to deliver that message, Kirin says slowly, understanding dawning in his eyes. To make us understand that as long as we're together, the packs will never have peace. Cashin nods, tears tracking down his face. I'm sorry, old friend. But they gave me orders. If you won't return willingly, the wolves close in. But before they can attack, something inside Brielle snaps. Not her control, her fear. The last wall she's been holding on to, the last piece of herself she's kept locked away, fractures completely. And the silver flame explodes. It erupts from her skin in a column of pure light, shooting into the sky, and the ground beneath their feet cracks open. Ancient power surges up from deep within the earth, responding to her call, and Brielle feels herself changing. Not shifting into her wolf, something more. Something older. Her body lifts off the ground, suspended in silver fire, and when she speaks, her voice echoes with the power of 1,000 ancient wolves. Enough. The word reverberates through the forest, through the bond, through every wolf present. They all drop to their knees, compelled by a force they can't resist, and even Kieran staggers under the weight of her power. I am not a weapon, Brielle says, and her voice is layered now, harmonized with something divine. I am not a curse. I am the flame of the first wolves, the child of the moon goddess, and I will not be caged or killed or used by those who fear what they cannot control. Cashin stares up at her, his face pale. The prophecy. The prophecy speaks of destruction only if I'm opposed. Brielle continues, the words flowing through her from somewhere deep and ancient. But it also speaks of reunification, of healing, of bringing the scattered packs together under one banner once more. That's what you fear, isn't it? Not that I'll destroy everything, but that I'll change it. The truth lands like thunder, and in the silence that follows, Brielle sees it in their faces. The council doesn't want peace. They want control. They want to maintain the current power structure, the territories and hierarchies and politics that keep them in charge. And she threatens all of it. Make your choice, she says, lowering back to the ground, the silver flame dimming but not extinguishing. Hunt me, and prove that the packs learned nothing from the fall of the first wolves. Or accept that change is coming, whether you welcome it or not. She turns to Kieran, and the look in his eyes. Pride, love so fierce it makes her chest ache, nearly undoes her. I won't let you face them alone, he says. I know. She takes his hand. So we face them together. Not as rogues running in the dark, but as what we are, the king who chose love over power, and the girl who chose to stop being afraid of her own strength. Cashin slowly gets to his feet, and the other wolves rise with him. The council won't accept this. Then the council will fall, Brielle says simply. And something better will rise in its place. She doesn't know if she believes it, but she knows she's done running. And as she and Kieran walk out of the clearing, hand in hand, with a sky full of stars bearing witness, Brielle understands that this is the real beginning. Not of an ending, but of a war. The council meets at the Gathering Stone, an ancient amphitheater carved into the mountainside where the packs have convened for centuries to settle disputes and forge alliances. When Brielle and Kieran arrive 3 days later, every seat is filled. Hundreds of wolves from dozens of packs, all gathered to witness what they believe will be an execution. Brielle can feel their fear, their anger, their anticipation. They expect her to come in chains. They expect Kieran to beg for mercy. They expect wrong. She walks into the amphitheater with her head high, the silver flame burning just beneath her skin, visible through her veins like liquid starlight. Kieran walks beside her, not behind, not in front, as her equal. They've dressed simply, no armor, no ceremony. Just two people who've decided they're done playing by rules designed to keep them apart. Elder Thorn stands at the center of the amphitheater, flanked by representatives from every major pack. When he sees them, his expression hardens. Kieran Ashenblade, he begins, his voice carrying across the stone. You were summoned to return the girl for judgment. Instead, you've brought her here to further demonstrate her threat. This council finds you both. This council has no authority over me. Brielle interrupts, her voice calm but carrying that harmonized quality from the forest. I am not a member of any pack. I am not subject to your laws or your judgments. I am here because I choose to be, not because you commanded it. Murmurs ripple through the assembled wolves. You are here because you carry a power that threatens every pack in these territories, another elder shouts. The flame of the first wolves destroyed them once. We won't allow it to destroy us. Then you understand nothing about what destroyed the first wolves. Brielle steps forward. It wasn't their power. It was their fear. They turned on each other, fighting for control instead of learning to share it. They let politics and pride tear them apart from the inside. Sound familiar? The words land like accusations, and several elders shift uncomfortably. The prophecy says I'll reunite the scattered packs, Brielle continues. But it doesn't say how. You've assumed it means conquest, destruction, forcing everyone to submit. But what if it means something else? What if it means showing you that the old ways, the territories, the hierarchies, the constant struggle for dominance are what's actually destroying you? Pretty words from someone who's already destabilized the northern territories, Thorn snaps. 3 packs have broken their alliances because their king chose a girl over his duty. I chose love over fear, Kieran says, his voice cutting through the noise. And yes, that scared some of you. Because if an alpha king can choose his heart over politics, what's stopping the rest of you from questioning the system that keeps you in power? The amphitheater erupts in shouts and arguments, wolves from different packs turning on each other, and Brielle sees it clearly now. They're already fractured. Already falling apart. They're just looking for someone to blame. Before the chaos can escalate further, a howl cuts through the noise. Not from inside the amphitheater, from outside. From the forests surrounding them. The Shadowborn Covenant has arrived. They pour out of the trees like a dark tide. 50 wolves, maybe more, their eyes glowing red instead of amber, corrupted by dark magic. And at their head walks a figure Brielle has only heard about in whispers, Malachi, the Shadowborn Alpha, a wolf who'd been exiled decades ago for trying to resurrect the forbidden magic of the first wolves. How convenient, Malachi calls out, his voice slick and amused. All the packs gathered in one place, arguing about whether to kill the very weapon I've been hunting for years. Please, continue your debate. It'll make collecting her so much easier. The council wolves immediately shift their attention, forming defensive positions, but Brielle can see the fear in their eyes. The Shadowborn are stronger, faster, enhanced by magic that makes them nearly unstoppable. You see, Elder Thorn shouts desperately. This is what she brings: chaos, destruction, enemies at our gates. We should have eliminated her when we had the chance. You had 5 years, Malachi interrupts, descending into the amphitheater with casual confidence. 5 years to kill her, contain her, or claim her. And you did nothing. So now she's mine. His wolves begin to circle, and Brielle feels the silver flame roaring inside her, demanding to be released. But she holds it back, holds it steady, because she finally understands what she needs to do. You want my power? She calls out to Malachi. Come take it. Brielle, no. Kieran starts, but she silences him with a look. Trust me, she whispers through their bond. Malachi smiles, predatory and cruel. Finally, someone with sense. Come willingly, girl, and I'll make your death quick. Resist, and I'll make you watch as I tear apart everyone you. Brielle doesn't let him finish. She releases the silver flame. But not as a weapon. As a beacon. The light explodes from her in every direction, washing over every wolf in the amphitheater. Council members, Shadowborn, rogues, everyone. And in that light, she shows them what she truly is. Not a threat. Not a weapon. But a bridge. The flame connects them all, forcing them to feel each other's fears, each other's hopes, each other's pain. The Shadowborn feel the Council's terror of losing control. The Council feels the Shadowborn's desperate hunger for the power they've been denied. And everyone feels Brielle's truth. That she never wanted this power, never asked to be special, just wanted to be free. The connection lasts only seconds, but it's enough. When the light fades, the amphitheater is silent. Wolves from opposing packs stare at each other with new understanding. Even some of the Shadowborn look shaken, their red eyes flickering back to amber as the dark magic wavers. Malachi staggers, his face twisted with rage and something else, fear. "What did you do?" "I showed them the truth," Brielle says quietly. "That we're all the same. All fighting for the same thing's safety, belonging, the right to exist without fear." The first wolves fell because they forgot that. Because they let power divide them instead of unite them. She turns to address everyone, her voice carrying across the stone. "I don't want to rule you. I don't want to destroy you. I just want to live. And I want all of you to understand that the power inside me isn't something to fear. It's something that could heal us, reunite us, give us a chance to be what we were always meant to be." "And what's that?" Elder Thorn asks, and for the first time, there's uncertainty in his voice instead of condemnation. "A family," Kieran answers, stepping up beside her. "One pack. Not divided by territory or politics or who has the most power. United by the simple truth that we're all children of the moon goddess, and we're all trying to survive in a world that's forgotten how to care for its own." The words settle over the amphitheater like a blessing. Malachi snarls, rallying his Shadowborn. "This is weakness. Sentiment. The strong will always dominate the weak." "Then you've already lost," Brielle says, and she lets the silver flame flare one more time. "Not to hurt. Not to destroy. But to show all of them. What real strength looks like." The flame surrounds her and Kieran, lifting them both off the ground, and ancient runes begin to glow throughout the amphitheater. The gathering stone responds to her power, recognizing what she is. The prophecy made flesh. The reunion made real. And when she speaks, it's with the voice of the moon goddess herself. "The choice is yours. Continue as you have divided, fearful, fighting each other for scraps of power. Or choose something better. Choose unity. Choose trust. Choose to believe that love is stronger than fear, that connection is stronger than division, that we are all stronger together than we ever could be apart." The silver flame pulses once, twice, and then gently fades. Brielle and Kieran lower back to the ground, and the silence that follows is deafening. Then, slowly, one wolf stands. Then another. Then another. Not to attack. To witness. To accept. Even some of the Shadowborn break away from Malachi, their eyes clearing, drawn by the promise of something better than the dark path they've been walking. Malachi screams in fury, but he's alone now. His wolves have abandoned him. And when he lunges for Brielle one last time, Kieran is there not to kill him, but to stop him. To contain him. To show that justice doesn't require cruelty. The Shadowborn Alpha falls, defeated not by violence, but by the simple truth at his way. The way of domination and fear has failed. Elder Thorn approaches slowly, his expression complicated. "What happens now?" Brielle looks at Kieran, then back at the assembled wolves. "Now we rebuild. Together. Not under my rule or Kieran's rule, but under a new council. One that represents all packs, all wolves, all voices. One that values unity over power. And if we refuse," another elder asks. "Then we part ways peacefully," Brielle says simply. "I won't force anyone. But I hope. You're tired of fighting. Tired of living in fear. Ready for something better." The elder considers this, then slowly nods. One by one, the other elders follow. Not all of them, some leave, retreating to their territories, unwilling to accept change. But enough stay. Enough believe. And as the sun sets over the gathering stone, painting everything in gold and crimson, Brielle stands with Kieran's hand in hers and realizes they've done it. Not through force. Through choice. Through love. Through the simple, radical belief that people are worth fighting for. 6 months later, Brielle stands at the edge of the same cliff where she almost threw herself into the darkness. But this time, she's not running. She's watching the sunrise, Kieran's arms wrapped around her from behind, and thinking about how much has changed. The new council is still finding its footing, still navigating disagreements and old grudges. Some pacts have embraced the unity. Others remain skeptical, waiting to see if it's real or just another temporary alliance that'll crumble under pressure. But it's working. Slowly, imperfectly, but it's working. Regrets? Kieran murmurs against her hair. Every day, she admits. I regret the 5 years I wasted hating you. The time I spent running for myself. The fact that I almost let fear win. But you didn't. He turns her in his arms, his storm gray eyes soft with love. You chose courage. You chose us. And you changed everything. She smiles, reaching up to touch his face. We changed everything. Together, he agrees. And as they stand there, wrapped in each other, Brielle thinks about the girl she was, 18, furious, convinced she'd been sacrificed to a monster. She thinks about how wrong she was. How Kieran was never her cage, but her liberation. Never her enemy, but her truest ally. How love, real love, is patient enough to wait for you to find your way home. Do you think they'll ever fully accept us? She asks quietly. The ones who still see me as a threat? Some will. Some won't. Kieran's arms tighten around her. But it doesn't matter. Because we know the truth. We know what we are, 2 people who refuse to let fear or tradition or prophecy decide our fate. 2 people who chose each other when everyone said we shouldn't. A rogue king and a dangerous girl, she teases. A king who found his purpose, he corrects gently. And a woman who claimed her power. The sun crests the horizon, spilling gold across the valley, and Brielle closes her eyes, letting the warmth wash over her. She thinks about the prophecy. About destiny and choice and the fine line between the two. About how sometimes the greatest act of rebellion is simply choosing to love someone when the whole world tells you not to. And she wonders, would you have chosen him? This alpha, this king, this man twice your age who the moon goddess bound you to before you were old enough to understand what it meant? Would you have been brave enough to stop running? To look past your fear and anger and see the love that was waiting, patient and quiet and unbearably tender, for you to finally notice it? Would you have forgiven him for being part of a system you never asked to be part of? Or would you have held on to your resentment, let it poison you from the inside, miss the chance at something real? These are the questions that haunt Brielle sometimes, late at night when she can't sleep. Because she knows how close she came to choosing wrong. How easily she could have let fear win. But she also knows this. Love isn't always a choice you make once. Sometimes it's a choice you make every single day. Every morning when you wake up beside someone and choose to stay. Every argument when you choose to listen instead of leave. Every moment of doubt when you choose trust over terror. She chose Kieran. And he chose her. And maybe that's all any prophecy ever really means, that some souls are meant to find each other, even if the journey is messy and painful and nothing like either of them expected. Ready to go back? Kieran asks, pressing a kiss to her temple. Back to the castle. Back to the council meetings and political negotiations and the endless work of building something new from the ashes of the old. Ready, she says. But before they leave, she turns to face the valley one last time, and she whispers a question to anyone who might be listening. Was she a hero for choosing love over fear? Or just a girl cursed with too much power and not enough time to figure out how to wield it? Was Kieran a monster for claiming her so young? Or a king who loved enough to wait for her to choose him back? The wind carries her questions away, unanswered. Because maybe there are no easy answers. Maybe the truth is somewhere in the complicated, messy middle, where a 40-year-old alpha and an 18-year-old girl bound by prophecy somehow found their way to something real. Where patience met courage. Where destiny met choice. Where 2 broken people learned to love each other's scars. And if this story lit something inside you, if it made you feel, made you question, made you believe in the stubborn power of choosing love even when it's terrifying, then maybe you belong here with us, in this space where we tell tales that burn. Subscribe to Cindy's Wolfheart Stories, because here, we don't shy away from the complicated questions. We don't pretend love is simple, or that destiny is always kind, or that choosing your heart over your head is easy. We tell the truth. The beautiful, painful, messy truth about what it means to love someone when the whole world says you shouldn't. And we ask, would you have chosen her side? Would you have believed in him? Would you have been brave enough to stop running and start falling? The answer is waiting. All you have to do is choose.